I'm basically just trying to retroactively like document the process that I went through of writing this play. And obviously I wrote it during the course that we did together, and I'm like, I can remember bits of it, but I'm also not trusting my memory. So I thought it'd just be nice to like chat to you guys and like find out about your experience of it and what you've been up to since as well, and just that kind of stuff if you're up for it. So my first thing that I was gonna ask you was like, I was thinking back and like why I applied and what I was where I was at that time. And I just remember that one of my big things at the start of last year was like writing. I wanted to do more writing. And so when the chance came up to do the course, I just jumped on it. But I didn't come to the course with, I don't think I came to the course with like any idea of like what I was going to write or what that was going to look like. So it'd be cool to know from you guys, like what made you want to sign up for the course, and did you come with like an idea of what you wanted to write, or did you come with a blank brain? And if you came with an idea, did it change, or did it stay kind of similar to what you thought it would be?
I was the exact opposite. Like I had quite a fully, not fully formed by any stretch of imagination, but I definitely had like an idea of what I wanted to do. And I sort of like, I think when I between like applying for it and finding out I'd got on it, I like did a lot of like I did a bit of stuff on it already, which was sort of
Right.
kind of a well, I didn't know I was going to get it, so I was like, I think I was doing it for something else, or had to like give some sample pages or something to some competition or whatever. So I'd start, and I actually really regret doing that because I was like, I would have loved to have. I mean, I've obviously still got all the notes and things, which will be really useful from going from a complete like blank page, like no idea what it could be, or like because I think a lot of the stuff early on was like really great exploratory like character things and coming up really with something from absolutely nothing, which yeah, I think would be really useful. So I felt like annoyingly I was like I was seeing everything through the lens of like something I already had, so it was really hard to like really interrogate whether the thing that I had was the best way of doing it, because I was like, right, but I've written 10 pages and I don't want to do it again, you know. But yeah, and then in terms of like why I wanted to be on the course, like Steph Smith's like just brilliant. I was like, I think the most I've ever cried in a theatre, I think, was her play Swallow. I remember like just sitting in the trav like after it, just in floods of tears with my friend Megan, and um yeah, I just kind of wanted to get uh, a little peek inside their brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I should say, like, because people might end up watching this who don't know. So Steph Smith is the playwright who led the course with us, who was just, yeah, fantastic from start to finish. But yeah, Stephen, what about you?
So I'd never written drama before at all. I had started writing in a creative writing group for people in recovery, and I found it incredibly kind of like positive and cathartic. And I was writing kind of short flash fiction pieces. Um, but I used to act when I was younger, and so I was quite keen to kind of like return to that in some form. Um, Found out about it, like just basically made up um, some pieces, kind of like, oh, this person's talking to this person, whatever. Sent it in and got accepted, and I was incredibly shocked that I kind of got in. I remember just the buzz. I was so thrilled. Um, so I came into it very much thinking I wanted to write about recovery, but having no idea how to do that. Um, or anything to do with theatre. It was a total kind of blast, like the whole thing.
And for all three of us, like different journeys to it, but like, yeah, so it was such cool. It was like,
It was my I should say it was my first play. I had never written a play before as well. So like although I'd had an idea of what I wanted to do, I definitely didn't have any idea of how plays worked from a writing perspective. But yeah, I've got an acting background as well, so like I knew how they worked from like, you know, exposure to them as audience and as an actor. But like, yeah, it's a very different thing, isn't it, when you're like trying to create one out of nothing.
I think that was one of the great things that Steph did, right? She kind of took what seems at the start as like such a daunting like task, and made it like so seem so manageable and achievable and approachable and accessible. If you could like pick out one thing that you like picked up on the course or like stuck with you from it, what would it be, do you think?
I liked hearing that Steph struggled. Like, oh, okay. I'm getting that a lot from like different, you know, schemes, whatever, or programs and things that I do. It's just nice to hear like people you really look up to in industry struggle with the same things. And like I guess it was interesting like hearing about how they kind of work their, you know, take feedback on and things like that, because like that's the place that I'm at now, like with it is like, you know, like dramaturgs are looking at it and stuff and trying to work with people to figure out what the note within a note is and stuff, like trying to figure out what, like, how do I solve the thing that you're struggling with? Like, is it actually that thing you're saying, or is it can it be solved elsewhere? Like, yeah, that was really useful, I remember.
I think for myself, it was just kind of like seeing that it was possible. I think when you read things or you go to the theatre or whatever, you're just seeing a finished product, aren't you? You're seeing so much stuff that's been developed and been shaped and had, you know, loads of people bringing their own different skills and craft to it. So it kind of seems, from my perspective anyway, it seemed impossible that I could do something that could end up looking like that. And I think that is the biggest thing over the 10 weeks. It really kind of all start to felt possible. It was like a really nice dialogue with the theatre as well as with Steph, and it kind of, yeah, it was like quite welcoming, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, just, yeah, I think that, and just kind of yeah, learning that people don't write perfect first drafts, right?
And I think that thing about the perfect first draft as well, like that was such a key or like a helpful thing for me, was like that thing of like just keep writing and keep moving forward, and like as tempting as it is to turn back and just like refine and refine and refine that one scene that you've managed to write, is like, no, keep pushing forward, get to the end. And that was like, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely still would not have completed that first draft if it hadn't been like we had that deadline at the end, and then we were
Yeah.
it was so nice that we were guaranteed feedback from someone at the Traverse, but we had to submit the draft by that date, and that was definitely what got me over the finish line with the first draft. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, definitely. That's the only thing that's kept me writing, is like specifically writing to, because I only started writing during COVID, so like it's been very much like everything I've done has been, I've had to make it like a means to an end kind of thing. Like I've had to, you know, write. I've made myself write specifically for things. You know, like if I've got an idea, like I'll wait till not wait, because there's stuff that comes up all the time, like, you know, applications and schemes and things. So it's like I write to that so that I've got a deadline, because the deadline is the application deadline or whatever. Like, and then sometimes I've found it quite helpful that if I've got an idea, sometimes I've just come up with an idea for the application. And it's a nice way to like almost come up with the treatment kind of idea, like coming up with like a one pager and getting your thoughts in order for a reason, as opposed, because I just don't think I would do it if it wasn't for a reason, if that makes sense. I think different people are, you know, some people are like, oh, I just have to get it out, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm just like, no, I need it to like be for a thing, or like with the hope that somehow it might get me in this room, or it might get it seen by this company or something like it. It's just always very, I've always got that in the back of my head, I think, when I'm applying or writing and stuff. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but yeah.
having parameters is like actually a really helpful thing, because it like cuts out, you know, that like just like limitless blank page of like this could be anything.
Yeah.
And I think like that was one great thing on the course as well. Like I'm not even sure how they did it really, but it was that nothing was prescribed to us, but I do feel like we were given like enough tools or like information where like it did make that like huge impossible window seem like really like help to like zone in on something without like telling us what that thing was that we had to zone in on. I think I'm right in saying that both of you guys have been involved in like exciting things, right? Since we finished. So do you want to share a bit about what you've been up to?
So I applied for the playwriting studio mentorship with the play that I wrote from in this breakthrough Launchpad, and yeah, I got in. So I'm one of the mentored playwrights, and I'm being mentored by Chris Hammond to write. Say it feels like my first play, my next play, right? Of the draft that I wrote, that I will finish at some point. I will do a draft too. So that's been fantastic. So it really did feel like applying for this has been a catalyst for like massive changes. I'm like absolutely loving writing drama, right? And just from I kind of thought I could maybe do that, to then like doing it regularly. So my first piece that I wrote, again, that I will finish, right, was about 4 guys that had just got out of treatment and were doing kind of escape room.
Yes, I remember.
And I think I just picked like the hardest thing that I think I could write. Like there was a clock, nobody could get in, they couldn't get out, and I had to kind of like have these, you know, life altering moments and changes, and I couldn't quite do it. I didn't have the skills yet, but it is an idea that I want to come back to. But the play that I'm writing at the moment is about the way we carry trauma through nightlife, through clubs, and how we kind of take on our childhood trauma and kind of spread it around at parties. That's the kind of idea, just spreading around that trauma.
What about you, Jill?
So I'm definitely still working on that one. But yeah, it's sort of moved quite quickly. I think it's just because I'm a fiend for applications. But yeah, so the play Jack in a Box that I was writing through the Breakthrough Writers Programme, it got chosen for the Tron Outside Eyes event, which was cool because I got to do like a 15-minute excerpt for that, which was really exciting. And then Catherine Nesbitt, who was one of the like visiting people that came in as associate at the Traverse and was like a dramaturg in her own right and things, came on board to like I just like arranged like a Zoom afterwards, and she came on board to hopefully direct R&D of it if we get funding. So we've applied for Creative Scotland funding for that, hopefully, and like some good theatres and stuff, and Players Studio Scotland have put like in a letter of support, which is great. And but I think the biggest thing is probably that it's been chosen for the Royal Shakespeare Company's 37 plays, which is insane. So yeah, that's crazy. So that gets like a script in hand performance with RS. Just a sentence I never thought I'd say. And yeah, so that's like going to be online and stuff. And then they're kind of like champion. So it's like you get a dramaturgy session, which I've had, and yeah, like they just kind of champion it, hopefully, to be a full production somewhere. So yeah, it's kind of in that limbo area where you're kind of like, you know, there's loads of different directions it could go in because it's obviously a really wild play. But yeah, so Jen, yeah, I've got a lot to this program for sure. And you guys, like, for feedback and things, it was so useful.
But that was like the really nice thing as well, wasn't it? Like because during the course we didn't really like. I was always so intrigued, but we never like only like in tiny little snippets you would hear like
Mm.
of what people were writing, and I was so intrigued to like hear. And then we had that lovely like showing at the end, didn't we? Where it was like, what was it, like 10 pages or something
Mm.
of each
6, I think. Yeah.
and they were all so different, but they were all so
Yeah.
and it was so nice to like get feedback from everybody and be able to like give feedback as well too.
And just hearing things out loud, like that was my first experience of hearing my things something I'd written out loud. It was really weird. Like it's a very yeah, it was just, I think for me it was like really interesting to like see the things that you thought you'd made clear in the script and then be like, oh, actually that's not, I didn't actually make that clear. Or just even like in the like, I don't know, it was just really interesting, like the things that you kind of take for granted that you because you've got it in your head and it's so clear to you, how much things need to be or not, like whether it's open to interpretation, but like finding the things that actually shouldn't be open to interpretation and the things that should, kind of thing. Yeah, that was really interesting. But yeah, it's like felt like a real honor to like have like such good people say your words. It was, yeah, it was really nice.
I remember just so anxious that I think I'm going to be like, I kind of feel like I took everyone's in, but at the same time I didn't, just because it was so like, the whole thing was just, so I felt so, it was the first time I'd ever heard my words kind of spoken. And it was just kind of that, oh, it sounds proper. Like it sounds real, right? And, yeah.
That was the weird thing, because we did do it on Zoom as well. Like you were in your own space, and I don't like you say, Stephen. Like I was really like taking in everybody else's, but I was also just like sitting like in my room sweating, being like, oh my gosh, like this is what's gonna happen, and what's it gonna sound like when these people say it.
It was like a nice taster of what it must be like, or a terrible taster of what it must be like if you're like a playwright in an audience on a press night. Like that is horrible. I realized that actually, I mean, it's a I've obviously experienced that as an actor and it's horrible, but at least it's like somewhat within your control. You know, like you can only really control like the lines that you're saying and the action that you're doing and, you know, the prep that you've done. But like to have an entire, sorry, cough, an entire production just like, okay, there's my baby, have fun. Like, and then it just like, run, like, and everybody either enjoy it or not. It was also weird doing like a comedy on Zoom because I could like see people laughing, but obviously everyone was on mute, so you can't actually get like the, I don't know, such a weird feeling. It's just like I'm like, ugh, I don't know if people are liking it or not. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's so hard to judge, isn't it, on Zoom, stuff like that, like how it's like reading for everybody else. But I guess also it can be like, even in a theatre, right, it's so hard to like judge sometimes, especially on like press events. Like it's very close to their chest usually, don't they?
Yeah.
Tell us about your play.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, like everything has taken me at like every step forward has probably taken about 6 months. I don't know how you guys felt, but after the course, like I was so proud of myself for like finishing this first draft, and then realized that like not in a pessimistic way, but like nobody really cares, do they? Like when you write a play, like no one's like falling over themselves to be like, oh, so like let's do something with that play you wrote. Like just life carries on for everybody. So I had about 3 months of realizing that like no one was gonna get me to do anything with it. I had to kind of be a bit more proactive about it myself. So I had a table read of it over the summer, which went really well, really nice feedback, and but still did not do anything really after that. And then by January of this year was finally got myself together to have a rehearsed reading of it. And then it was shortly after that that I decided definitely wanted to try and take it to the Fringe. And then so yeah, then the past like 6 months have just flown by with like getting a venue and then all the prep, and yeah, so the last week of the Fringe. We're up the 21st to the 26th. But that's super exciting.
So how similar is the play now to what you wrote in that in the course?
Do you know what? It's actually not hugely different. If anything, just with each showing or sharing of it, I've basically just like reduced it down, I think, more than anything else. But it's quite structured, and the structures remain the same, and really what it's about has remained the same, but just every time it's been like a little boiling down, like a reducing or chopping away like the fat and the yeah, the bits that you write to, like, to try and be an interesting writer, and then you realize like that's just there because you're trying to like show that you can like write, not rather than just like writing something. Like you find all those bits or other people find them for you, and then you like cut them away until you're left with
And how did you like pull together, because this is what I found is really tricky and like no one really teaches you how to do it. Like how did you pull together like a team like around it, or like is there a director on board, or you directing it, or is like who are the actors, like how did you like bring it all together, or producer, or how did you bring it all together?
Yeah, so super lucky in that the first person I shared it with, my really close friend Amy, who is also a director. So once we finished the course, she was the first person I shared it with, and she read it and she said she loved it, and she said if you ever need someone to direct it, like I would love to be that person. So that was like amazing. So she's been with me since like
Oh, cool, that's good.
yeah, and then so it's pretty autobiographical. So I am one of the actors in it. So that was like covered that side of it. And then I did have one beautiful actor who's been working on with me since the table read, who got a bloody Netflix show, didn't they? So they weren't available to do Fringe, but we've just had some auditions and got a new actor together. But in terms of producing and stuff, it's all like self-producing. So that's been a cool learning experience too, like finding out all the things that you actually need to do to make a show rather than just rocking up. Like one of the only like real like accessible platforms for like new writing still, right? Like so much, it's really hard for new writing to like break through, and new playwrights, I think, in theatre, like because obviously it's such a financial risk putting on a piece of theatre, so like people want that guarantee. So obviously the Fringe is a great opportunity.
Well, we're excited to come and see it for sure. Like,
thank you
guys. Have a proper posse.
So nice. And I'm so glad that everyone is like, because I'm sure I've seen bits and pieces from other people, so I'm so glad that everyone is like doing exciting things from the time we spent together, and yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool having a group of people who'd never really done anything like that. We were totally to it. Yeah, it's just I'm sure the work shows that as well, like that everyone's come from all kind of different walks of life.